All right, let's wrap it up with our last two games to recap. Let's start with Chicago Red Stars versus Portland Thorns. The Thorns going on the road, picking up all 3 points. A 3-2 scoreline in this one. Lori, I like the response from Chicago. It's a loss. It's another loss for this team, unfortunately. They've been struggling this year. It has been, let's just call it what it is. It's been a historically tough season for that franchise. But coming off of a 5-0 loss in their last regular season match against the Courage, a 4-0 loss against the Courage in the Challenge Cup game midweek, and then to have to turn it back around and go back home and go up against Portland Thorns, a team that has not been dropped out of the upper half of the table, a team that we both agree has a lot of depth on that squad, that even if they go on the road, they can have their rotations. And Chicago just not, advantageous in those areas. But to sort of see this response, kind of have a little bit of a fight, it's a positive sign. But for Portland, maybe there's some other things here. And I talked about this on the preview, and I'm curious about your thoughts on this. Something that I think they've shown us is that they're an exciting attacking team. But at this point in the season, we got to say something's afoot with the defensive shape of this team, because they, at this point in the season, are no strangers to conceding goals.
Yeah.
And we see this happen. It gets a little nervy at moments in this game for Portland. My goodness, there's a moment where there's a potential opportunity for Chicago to equalize, and it goes off the post. So they're saved essentially by this post and a shot by St. George's. So is it one of these things where you kind of wipe your brow and you say, all right, we got out of there, let's keep it moving and just move on to the next one, because it keeps them still in the upper half, and Chicago keeps them still in the lower half of the table.
Yeah. Well, I do think that you're like, okay, we got the 3 points and we're out of there. Right.
Yeah.
And probably too close for comfort for Portland, but I agree with you. I think that they have shown that they're one of the best attacking teams, if not the best attacking fluid team, with all the pieces that they have getting into the attack in this league. However, I think, one of the things that even Mike Norris has said throughout this season is we're susceptible in defensive transition. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with one, Becky Sauerbrunn has missed some pieces. She's a calming factor back there. You're going to have leadership, the understanding positionally. It's not that they haven't had her out previous seasons before and had to fill those gaps. But I think anytime you're missing somebody of that stature, and as we mentioned at the top of this show, that is a loss, right? That is a significant loss, especially with the way that Portland wants to play, which is aggressive in their approach. I also think, I've been high on Sam Coffey since she stepped foot in this league. Yeah. But at times when you are only playing with that one pivot, if you're smart and you get players on either side of her, she can be dragged out of position, and rightfully so, because she's trying to cover, right? So that makes sense. But then you have to make sure that you're diligent with allowing for other players to drop back in, help cover for her, or the positioning specifically on that back line has to be spot on. And I think that sometimes that's when they get themselves in trouble. And it's not that they aren't aware of that. I just think with the fine margins and how tight this league is, even if a team like Chicago, and to your point, yes, massive credit, because you could show up to every game being like, what are we doing here? Right. And I feel like they keep showing up with smiles on their face. It's tough. And they're like, they fought back. Like they conceded at a time when you don't want to concede late in the first half, and you're still coming out, you're getting a goal, and they're cheering. Like these are like, oh, like go for this. They're professional athletes and they're competitive. I wouldn't expect anything different, but like also as a competitive athlete, you're like, this is not it, right? Like we're pissed, and they freaking show up. And I credit to those players because they keep going. But I think it's something for Portland to look at. And I also think is whatever you can do. If you're scoring goals at any point in time, even though it's a loss for Chicago, my goodness, credit to those players because they keep showing up.
Yeah, right. It's a long season, and they're just taking it game by game. And I think at this point, it's all you can really do. There's a lot of we've talked about it endlessly. I think on this show, there's a lot of just uncontrollables there for them, and they're doing what they can, which is show up and show out. And I think this was one of those games where they can maybe take a look at and say, okay, we're putting some things together here, like the pairing of Davidson and Sharples together. I think the return of Sharples is going to help provide some relief there a little bit in the back for the Chicago Red Stars team. I know there's going to be concerns as Aaron Wright exited the game with an injury, so hopefully it's nothing too major for this team, because that would be a blow. Let's not act like it wouldn't be for the team at this point. But I think if you're Portland, I'm with you. They're just like, okay, we're just going to score more goals than the other team. And look, there's nothing wrong with kind of having that energy throughout the remainder of your regular season. So kudos to them on hanging on and getting all 3 points. But we have to talk about one final game and a team that could not hang on. We got to talk about KC Current versus Washington Spirit. Current get the loss in this one after going up. It ends 3-2 in favor of Washington Spirit. Lori, what happened in this one?
Oh, I don't even know. I'm not even sure that the Current know. I was actually, and just from a Kansas City standpoint, because I really enjoy this Washington Spirit team. I think one thing about Mark Parsons that has been true through and through since he stepped foot in this league, dating back to his first time with Washington, is that he knows how to win. And he's going to galvanize his team, right? And there's been endless talk about Mickey Owen playing on the back line. Well, we can all be quiet because how well has she done? And then she scores goals when on set pieces or when it's needed. Mateer in the midfield, right? Like they're playing a diamond that's difficult to play against. They're exciting. Obviously, anytime you have X factors like Trinity Rodman, Hatch, and Ashley Sanchez coming out of the midfield there, then you're always going to be a handful. But for Kansas City, my God, look at this roster. And there has been too many, in my opinion, too many ups and downs, ebbs and flows in this season. And they'll agree. Like, this isn't like anything new for them. They're the ones out there. But I thought, okay, here we go, turning some things around, getting a bit more stability. Dabinia getting Michelle Cooper. Love her. So many of her games at Duke. And this player, even though she hasn't found the back of the net a ton, a bright future. So to set an NWSL record, I should say, with the earliest goal.
It's like, of course, right?
Yeah.
But look, this is a player that they were high on. They went out, made moves to try to move higher in the draft, to grab and obtain this player and try to build with them, and had to start week 1 in the regular season. So I've been high on this player. She doesn't have the goals, like you said, at this point to maybe kind of keep her names in the lights in the race for a Rookie of the Year campaign, but to kind of finally get that first goal and by like shattering and establishing a new record for fast goals, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
That almost feels correct for Michelle Cooper. But I mean, it was a way to put the motion and set the game in motion for Kansas City. I was just kind of like, okay, maybe this is it. Like we talked about timing of a season. If you're one of those lower half table teams coming out with the urgency and sticking with it and making sure you're going out there and getting those wins, right? Not just result at this point. You got to get 3 points. And it just sort of felt like they were going to carry that energy. They're getting the players back that they wanted in the course of the offseason. Dabinia has been doing well with this team. DiBernardo has been performing well with this team. Now they're getting Morgan Gautreau back, who I think is going to be an absolute key to unlock some things.
Agree.
Kansas City Current moving forward. We almost saw it come together in this game, but like you said, there was just something about this Spirit side as they're being coached under Mark Parsons, a coach who's not unfamiliar with making sure that teams have the variables to go out there and turn things around. And this is a Spirit side that's only 2 years removed from a championship of their own. They've got players who know what it takes or means to turn things around. But to see the younger players, the newer players to this Washington Spirit side make that impact and ensure that game gets switched on, I think is very, very telling for this Washington Spirit side and the depth that they have. So yeah, we absolutely have to shout out Paige Mateer. I think if we're talking about these first year players, kind of, I think, following under the radar a little bit in terms of players who can maybe make a run for that Rookie of the Year record, doing some incredible things with the Spirit.
What a great profile too. I mean, it's also like it's so unassuming because you wouldn't expect it, and then can cover ground. I mean, that's a player that goes hidden and like is not flashy, right? When you go to games, you're not going to like point to Paige Mateer, but that's a player that helps win you championships because they'll do so much of the dirty work. They do all of these things that like win the ball back, building in the air, and to be doing it as a rookie, I think it's taken off a lot of the load of Andy Sullivan in there, and then it allows players like the front three that we just mentioned to be able to have a bit more freedom and to get into influence the final third. Really, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, love to see it. And of course, the 3 points propels the Spirit back on top of the standing. So congratulations to them. Welcome back. They are number 1 heading into week 13 in NWSL action with 23 points.